Good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. Let us stand as we prepare to open with prayer. And this morning, our prayer champion, Nick Bullitt, will lead us in prayer.
Good morning, Celebration.
Good morning.
Happy summer. Let's just take this moment to close our eyes and take a deep breath in and release. And another breath in and release. Here in this moment, I know, God, that you are perfect illumination. You are perfect light. You are the energy that lights up everything. Megawatt, mega voltage, beyond and beyond anything I could ever think or imagine. You are that perfect light and that perfect glow. You are source, you are creator, you are magnificent. And all those things that you are, I know that I am. I am the small, but you are in the large. I am that glowing energy that you are. All those things that you are vibrating, I am vibrating in that light. And as I know these things to be true for myself, I know these things to be true for each and every person in this room. Each and every person in this room is one with the one with the one and only light and glowing force, source that is God. And as we recognize the lessons in nature, knowing that we are ushering in a brand new summer, we look at the lessons of summer. And I know that there is a light and a vibration that is heating up in my life. There is a light and a vibration that is moving through my spirit. And as each and every degree of heat gets hotter in the summer, I know that I am pulling that energy into my life. I am pulling that joy into my life. And as another degree gets hotter, I say, bring more light and joy into my life. Come on, heat. Come on, summer. And with each and every day that passes, I know that I am ushering in new joy, new peace, new harmony, new freedom. And I know that I can let go of whatever doesn't serve me. As it gets hotter and hotter and more things are coming into my life, I let go of those things that are too heavy, those things that are too hot, those things that do not serve me. And I just take it in, all that is good and all that is light. So right here and right now, I just give thanks for this moment, knowing that this is a blessed service, knowing that we are meant to get all of the lessons that we are meant to receive, taking in all of the good, taking in all of the light, and we just receive that. I give thanks for this experience, and I release this prayer back into source, back into cause, where it is already met and received, and together we say, amen, ashe, and so it is. So it is.
So we celebrate being here in the present moment. The past is gone, the future is yet to come, and we are here now. Yes, yes? I can feel my feet on the ground. I'm in the present moment now. What a joyful place I'm found. Here in the present moment. Leaving my worries at the door. Open to more love and joy. Celebrate every now. We're in the present moment. Yes, yes, we are. We think I breathe in, I breathe out. I am in the present moment now. The easiest way to reset it is to bring your focus and attention on your breath. And then you can sing these words. You're in the present, problems seem so small. You're in the present, all my giants fall. You're in the present, problems
light that is summer. Well, I'm Pastor Yolanda on behalf of myself and Pastor Greg. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Celebration Spiritual Center, where we celebrate the magnificence of God. In you, as you, all around you, there is nothing but God, and it is good. It sits right where you sit. It breathes right where you breathe. Its heart beats right where your heart beats. And we are so grateful for this energy, this life force that is animating us. And if you're unfamiliar with a place that remembers your perfection, that remembers your sinlessness, that remembers your magnificence, well, welcome here. Welcome home. That's why. That's how we celebrate. At CSC, we believe that everything is spiritual, and that would include your lovely smart devices. So go ahead and spiritualize your phones. Put them on vibrate. But if something moves you or touches you, put it out there on Facebook and Twitter. A Course in Miracles says it very clearly. All minds are joined. And so you never know how you're going to impact another life. Put it out there. And I'm looking out and I see nothing but familiar family. So I want to remind you that there's another purpose to the connection card. If, for example, your information has changed, your address has changed, anything has changed, go ahead and fill it out with the new info. Drop it in with your offering and we'll update your information in the system. When we first said yes to co-creating what we're doing right now, we said we wanted to create a place that felt so much like home, that when you came, you were never a visitor. When you came, you were a family. And so I see that we have plenty of family in the house. So let's all stand and greet each other this morning like this.
Celebrating Pride. We are keeping the music affirmative, self-affirmative, self-actualized. And so it's important that we understand something powerful about ourselves, that we are beautiful people. Because what's absolutely true is that your relationship with yourself is your relationship with God, your relationship with God is your relationship with yourself. And so we're going to sing about the beauty of God later, but first we're going to affirm this truth that we are beautiful people. We will not wait for the world or a magazine or a commercial or a billboard sign to affirm our beauty, but we will know it for ourselves. And as we know it for ourselves, then we're able to demand that the world reflect that. And it happens almost automatically. When you know that you're beautiful, you begin to hear that, you begin to see that, you begin to see the reflections. And so when we think about humanity and the ways in which we've evolved, it's beautiful to see all of the people of color and all of the diversity that we see on magazines that were not diverse at one point in time. It's because we recognize that we're beautiful people. But we can never be reminded of it enough, I think. So we're going to affirm this truth together. Every one of you are beautiful people. I see you. I see you. And you're beautiful. And you're beautiful. I see you. I see you. And you're beautiful. And you're beautiful. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. And you're beautiful. And you're beautiful. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. And you're beautiful. And you're beautiful. Beautiful people. Every one of you are beautiful people. You're so every one of you are. The God in me sees the God in you. Namaste. Namaste. I say namaste. I say namaste. 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 Hey, namaste. I say namaste. 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 Hey, namaste. I say namaste. I say namaste. Every one you are. Beautiful people. Beautiful people. Every one of you are. Send this to someone next to you. I see you. I see you. I see you. And you're beautiful. And you're beautiful. I see you. I see you. And you're beautiful. And you're beautiful. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. And you're beautiful. And you're beautiful. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. And you're beautiful. And you're beautiful. Namaste. Oh, namaste. Namaste. I say namaste. I say namaste. Oh, namaste. 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 I say namaste. 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 I say namaste. I say namaste. 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 I say namaste. Every one of you are. You are. Every one of you are beautiful. The God in me sees the God in you. I know you're beautiful. Every one of you are.
Rising CSC. My name is Gabby, and I'm so happy to see each and every one of you today. One thing that you will learn about CSC is that our mission, vision, and purpose drives everything that we do. The vision. Celebration Spiritual Center is a God experience that turns on the heart, mind, and soul of the world. A God experience is the realization of oneness that transcends material sense. Our mission and purpose is to awaken the world to the presence of God within and all around us. Celebrate this truth as one family, embody unconditional love, equip humanity to live our greatest lives, and serve all creation. The centering thought for the month of June is, I am open and available to more. And the song is, I Make Room. We continue the June message series, I Can See Clearly Now. I'm going to sing. It's all good. Pastor Greg's topic today is the seed cracked open. And now it's time for your CSC news and updates. Summer hours are back to CSC, which means doors open at 10 a.m. and service begins promptly at 10:30 a.m. Summer hours will be observed through the end of August, so come early, get your spiritual food, and then do something fun and relaxing with the rest of your day. Make this summer a summer that you'll never forget. The next round of 4T Prosperity Program begins Thursday, July 11th, and registration is open now. This is your opportunity to learn from and study directly from Pastor Greg and Pastor Yolanda. The cost of the class is $99 for new students and $50 for returning students. Now, y'all, the Sunday morning high is not going to fix your life, okay? So spend some time this summer transforming your life. Yes. Go to celebrationsc.org/register to reserve your seats. Save the dates. Summer Lovin' is coming. Join us for our annual Summer Lovin' Friends and Family Day celebration on Sunday, July 21st. Service begins at 10:30 a.m. and there will be lots of food and music and fun after service. Be sure to invite your friends and family. More details to follow. Start your day by knowing the truth of who and whose you are. PGPY and the Prayer Champions pray with us and for us every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Call details can be found at the member services table on our website and social media. Connect with us this Wednesday and advance confidently to your day. Text to give. It's fast, it's easy, and it's secure. Text your dollar amount to 347-744-9500. Then follow the prompts. Minimum donation is $10. Again, the number is 347-744-9500. Try it out today. Now, just a few short housekeeping reminders. Food and beverage is not allowed in the sanctuary except for water. However, we do ask that you keep your beverage covered. Also, no audio or video recording is permitted during service. And now we have a few short announcements from Pastor Greg and Pastor Amanda. But before that, thank you, and I'll see you next week.
Hello again, I'm going to be brief. If you have floral arranging, interior design, a creative eye, and would love to be part of creating all the beauty that happens at CSC, our Divine Design team is now looking for more people to be involved in the team long term. When we get to our Summer Lovin' event, we'll have an opportunity for anyone that wants to volunteer before the event. But if you are interested in learning how, you have a slight panache, and you'd like to contribute in that way to our team, please see me after service, and I can tell you more details, okay? All right.
Good morning again, everyone. So as you know, on Friday, we celebrated the longest day of the year, the summer solstice. It is officially summer. And there's something that's interesting about summer. I'm, of course, a believer in following the cycles of nature. This is what originally led me to create 90 Days to Greatness. So what we do with 90 Days to Greatness is in October, that's when we begin planning for the new year. going within, using the fall, using that energy of the fall and winter to prepare for the new year. Well, summer has a similar energy, but different. And so I want to support you all, as many people as are interested in doing the same thing. Summer is actually the season of action. Now, we use summer as the time for vacation and a step away, but if you look at the way life is working, when you look at how the earth is demonstrating during summer, it's a time of being out, it's a time of being active. And so, as we are looking at and moving towards the second half of the year, I want to support 50 people in actually taking inspired action on whatever your goals are, whatever your vision is. Maybe you're stuck, maybe you're not sure which way to go, maybe you realize you have some blocks but you're not sure what to do. So what I'm doing, I'm offering a 1-hour session to 50 people that can be booked anytime between now and the end of the summer. So now and mid-September. It's an inspired action session, right, to support you. What can that look like? We can do a visioning session. What could that look like? I can walk you through creating action steps for whatever that goal is that you're moving through. I can walk you through uncovering the blocks that are actually keeping you stuck in moving forward. Use the energy of summer. This is the time of action. This is the time to take inspired action. And so if you want to do that, if you want to move through in that way, come and see me personally. You can email me, you can DM me, message me. I'm all over social media. Reach out to me and we'll book your session. It's also a 20% discount on the session for 50 people. All right? See you soon.
The energy of summer. And even in the summer, we make time to tap into the source within us so that we can get those inspired ideas. I like to call this time the meditation experience because it's the time where we go beyond our, as my grandmother would say, book learning, where we go beyond our current level of regurgitation of what we've learned, and we allow it to be expressed within us. We allow ourselves to feel God. We don't just talk about God. We take this time to know God. And how can we know God so quickly? Because God is always available, always operating in, through, and as us. So always during our service, we take time to tap in. Tap into this field of unity consciousness. Tap into possibility. Tap in to the love within us. Tap in. And then we take that energy that settles us, that caresses us, that reminds us. We take that out into our day. But if we're sitting here blocked and our mind is in the future, or our mind is in the past, how can we make room for God now? How can we make room for God now? We have to bring ourselves very present. We have to bring ourselves here and affirm, I am open, God. I'm open and receptive, God. Not only am I open and receptive, I'm open and receptive to more. More of you. Whatever the more is for you. So let's go ahead and close our eyes. And allow our back to rest against the chair. And as your back rests against the chair, notice how it feels to be held. Held right here. Held right now. Not held by the conditions, but held by God. Held by love. And not only is your back supported, but your feet are nicely planted on the earth. And you feel the support of nature underneath you. So you can relax the feet. So much that we carry on the feet, relax the ankles down. Allow relaxation to travel up the shins and calves,
Settle in the seat, relaxing the hips, the joy center, relax the hips. And now feeling the surrender of the hips, we allow the energy to travel up the spine, activating each vortex of energy. Each chakra begins to spin. Each chakra is balanced, and the energy flows out the crown of the head. Like a beautiful fountain, just allowing energy to spill onto your neighbor, and your energy touches you. And we fill this room with the relaxed energy of love. And then like a sponge, we soak it up, allowing it to travel down our neck, down our shoulders, relax the shoulders, down our arms, and out our fingertips. We become a vessel for love. And with this vessel so firmly in our mind, we activate our breath now. Bring your focus to the low belly. And together, let's breathe in through the low belly. Inhale, expand the low belly. Inhale. Hold it there. Audible exhale, open the mouth and release. Inhale through the low belly, now up through the rib cage. Expand the front, expand the sides. Make full contact with the back. Open the mouth and release. Inhale all the way up through the heart. Hold it there. Heart chakra, center of the chest. Expanding across the front and the back of the body. Open the mouth and release. Beautiful. This is how we should breathe when we're relaxed. In, all the way in and up through the heart. Hold it there. Open the mouth, release. Beyond where you think there's air, there's more to release. Inhale again, all the way up. Exhale, nice and easy. This time, inhale all the way up. Close the lips and exhale through the nose. Slow it down. Slow. Slow. This is our pattern of breath for the remainder of our meditation. In and out through the nose. Activating everywhere where it feels tight. Imagine in your mind sending the energy of love there. Tighten your body. Tighten the energy around you. Tighten your finances, wherever it might be. Tighten your relationships. Release it now. And as we sing these words, you just make room for this energy to correct, to heal, to enliven. All that you are, make room. Make room. Make room. I make room for God. I make room for God. I make room for God. I make Anywhere that we're holding on physically, we let go now. Anywhere that we're holding on vibrationally, we let go now. Anywhere that we're holding on, we make room for this love, this more, and something better to fill it. As we go into the silent time, you just take that inward journey and remind yourself, I am open and receptive to more. And we will monitor the time. Let every voice, but the voice that is this love, let it be still now. With our eyes still closed, there's still time to make room. Scan the body, scan the mind. Release anything that is unlike love, unlike the wanted, unlike peace, unlike ease. Let it go. And in its place, imagine love flowing in Raise the chin, raise the gaze. Namaste.
So before we sang Beautiful People, I talked about the wonderful idea that your relationship and how you see yourself with yourself reflects your relationship with God. And your relationship with God reflects your relationship with Source. And so if you are unable to call God beautiful, I can tell you, not because I can predict the future or have some special powers, but I can then tell you about your relationship with yourself. Now that word God might be a word that's charged for you, but if your relationship with the universe, if you can't call the universe beautiful, I believe it's Einstein is credited as saying, there's a fundamental question. Is the universe friendly or is it not? That determines your life. Is the universe beautiful or is it not? Is Source beautiful or is it not? Is God beautiful or is it not? Use whatever word feels good. But what is your relationship with it? And so this song is a celebration of the truth that God, that Source is beautiful, based on the ancient poem by Guru Nanak, I Call You Beautiful. Beautiful, loving, unconditional God. Ease, grace, peace, joy, good and only good. Good and only good. This is who and what God is. This is who and what source is. This is who and what the universe is. Beautiful, God, I call you beautiful. I call you beautiful. My beautiful God. You're unconditional. You love me as I am. You're just so you're so unconditional. Your love unconditional. My beautiful God. Put your hand on your heart and affirm, beautiful God. You're affirming the divinity in you. You're affirming the power of the universe that's dwelling in you. The spark of light, the spark of God, the spark of divinity that's in you. And it's beautiful, it's beautiful. Oh, and it's divine, and it's holy. Yes, it is. It's a beautiful God. It's a beautiful God. So it is. So it is. So it is. Our concept of God is the key to a miraculous life. Once we come to understand this truth, this power, that who and what God is, who and what source is, and that it's beautiful, it's an absolute game changer. Well, good morning again, CSC. Happy Sunday. Happy solstice. It is so good to see each and every one of you. I want to take a moment. I know he's not streaming now because they're on the highway, but today is my dad's 65th birthday. So, shout him out. It's so cool. It's so cool. I just got to shout him out. But I want to get into the service and into the sermon because I have some things I want to share with you all that I pray will be beneficial. We are investigating, looking at, uncovering some truths found in an ancient story from Plato's Allegory of the cave. And we started in week 1 with waking up from this dream, and week 2, so long, farewell. And the initial part, for those who haven't been here, I just want to give you a little bit of the story where it starts. He asks the conversation between Socrates and a student, asked to imagine a person being chained and facing a wall, chained at their neck and at their legs, and so they can't see to the left or the right, they can't get up. And because of that, their experience of life is only what they can see up against this wall. And so there's a fire behind them, and there are people that are walking to and fro and different objects. And so the shadows that are cast on the wall, that becomes their reality. That's all they know to be true. And they begin to name the shadows, and they begin to create relationships based on the shadows. And the people that are behind them are also speaking. And so it's like an echo. And so they give power to those voices. And so what I talked about in that first week is that we can recognize that stage in our life can be, for many of us, I talked about unhealed traumas, the stress of life that we haven't moved through and released. And so what happens is it literally changes us. It has us looking at life through the lens of the stress, looking at life through the lens of the trauma, and naming life, right? Someone could, when you're stressed out, for instance, someone could be coming to you in kindness and with good intentions and want to help you, but you immediately interpret them as a danger or something to fear. And so you lash out at them, and they were just simply trying to help. That's what happens with a stressed out mind, because you're interpreting life through these shadows. And so last week we talked about what happens once you're released from that prison and you begin to gain a new experience. And what we talked about there was the need to say so long farewell to that old experience, right? To not straddle between the two ways of being, but actually embrace fully this new way of being, because there's so much you have to learn. And Socrates, or Plato writes about, but Socrates talks about there in the story that you're now going to have to learn new things. You're going to have to learn a new language. Everything that was a shadow is now a real object that you have to understand and name and understand the ways of being. But also that light or that fire that was behind you, because you've been looking away from the light for so long, your eyes have to adjust to that new way of being, and that can feel painful. And so we move on into the story, and as I was thinking about this part of the story, my mind was taken to the great Sufi mystic poet Hafiz. And I want to share this poem with you, The Sea Cracked Open. It used to be that when I would wake in the morning, I could with confidence say, what am I going to do? That was before the sea cracked open. Now Hafiz is certain. There are two of us housed in this body, doing the shopping together in the market and tickling each other while fixing the evening's food. Now when I awake, all the internal instruments play the same music. God, what love mischief can we do for the world today? And within this poem is contained something that's very powerful, because this next part of the uncovering of the allegory is really about the point of awakening, the full manifestation of awakening. And it can look different for different people. But what I've come to learn through observation and through personal experience is that the unmistakable effect of awakening is union, love, and service. And we find those three things right there in the poem, but I want to first just take us into where Plato has us. Again, now, where we are in the story, we're now unchained. We're unbound. We're no longer facing the wall. We're no longer looking at the shadows. We're no longer listening to the echoes. And we've learned a new language. Now those things that were shadows we realize are real objects. And we are learning a new way of seeing. We've learned a new way of being. You're living a brand new life, but you're still in the cave. Right? For many of us, as we come to these teachings, as we come to this philosophy, we develop a new experience, a new language, a new way of talking. All of a sudden, we're speaking more affirmatively, and we're learning how to pray differently and to pray affirmatively. And we are using, as I talked about last week, we're using our forgiveness worksheets now. We understand how that works. We may be using the work. We may be using other tools, but all of a sudden, we have this new way of being, these new tools, these new language that is completely different than the experience of when we were facing the wall. But then we read this in the story. And suppose once more that he is reluctantly dragged up a steep and rugged ascent and held fast until he is forced into the presence of the sun himself. Is he not likely to be pained and irritated? When he approaches the light, his eyes will be dazzled, and he will not be able to see anything at all of what we now call realities. Now you hear what's happening? You were chained to the wall. You were free. You created a new experience, a new life. And I said this last week, but it's, in that new life, life is brand new. I mean, there's freedom in that way of being. You're no longer chained. You have new realities. You have new friends. You have new things you're seeing, new things you're learning. And then in the middle of that, and things are feeling good, all of a sudden, what does he say? You are reluctantly dragged up a steep and rugged ascent and held fast until you are forced into the presence of the sun. Now you're being dragged out of the cave. And you are now in the presence of the sun. Another experience with light. And is it not likely that you would be pained or irritated by looking at the light of the sun? When we approach the light, your eyes will be dazzled and you will not be able to see anything at all of what we now call realities. Now, what does this look like in our life? Something unexpected happens. You've been doing your work, you've been taking your classes, you've been doing all of these things, and then all of a sudden, a breakup comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden, a divorce, a job loss, a job change. All of a sudden, there's a significant change in your income. All of a sudden, you may have a near-death experience, or you or someone close to you may be diagnosed with a terminal illness. You didn't see this coming. The seed cracked open. But here's the thing, and this is so important for us to understand in this moment. You're not the same person. You're not that person that was chained to the wall. You're not that victim that you were to life anymore. You have tools now. You have a perspective now. You have been given the very things you need to move through this journey. This is why I love the hero's journey. If you, one of my favorite movies since I was a child was Clash of the Titans. It's the story of Perseus. And one of the things I love about the story of Perseus is that his father Zeus gives him the tools he needs to be successful, even though he doesn't realize he's going to need it. Right? His father gives him this beautiful sword that he's able to use later to kill Medusa. He gives him this beautiful shield that he uses later. He gives him this helmet that makes him invisible. He gives him the winged horse, Pegasus. All of these things, he didn't know what he was going to need them for when he received them. But at the moment of crisis, at the moment of the unexpected experience, at the moment when he needed it, he could call on the tool that he had been given all along. So you didn't see this thing coming. You didn't see this unwanted, unexpected change happen. You didn't see it coming, but you are not who you were before. That's so important for us to hear. And so then he goes on and says he will require to grow accustomed to the sight of the upper world. And he will first see the shadows best, next the reflections of men and other objects in the water, and then the objects themselves. Then he will gaze upon the light of the moon and the stars and the spangled heaven, and he will see the sky and the stars by night better than the sun, or the light of the sun by day. And so this is, when we think about true awakening, and what I'm talking about here is, you know, we read about people that have had near-death experiences, right? And they move out of that and they're changed. They operate in the world differently. They operate in the world from a place of fearlessness. They understand something about life that many people don't. The same happens for folks. It's amazing to watch the transcendent experience that can happen when someone is moving through an illness. And that's whether they transition from that illness or whether they heal from that illness. I was thinking about one of my good friends who transitioned when we were 33. But I remember seeing him a few months before he transitioned, and it was like he was glowing. He was just this beautiful being of light and just of joy. And I was just arrested by that moment, right? And we had a wonderful time, a wonderful conversation. But there's something that can begin to happen. This what's being explained here in this metaphor, this idea of you'll see the shadows is best, and then the reflections of men and objects in the water. But then you will gaze upon the light of the moon and the stars and the spangled heaven, and you'll see the stars by night better than you'll see the sun. And so what's happening here, this is where I talked about union, love, and service. This is where the place of union starts to happen. You start to understand and begin to experience your unity with all life. You start to begin and understand your connection to all nature. You begin to look at the trees and have a conversation with that leaf, because you can just see God all up in that leaf. You begin to look at the flowers and begin to have a conversation with the flowers, because you just see God as being manifested as that beautiful sunflower or that beautiful daisy. You begin to look at the experience even of your past, and now you understand your past from a way that you never understood it before. You see that you were supported all the time. You see that there were hidden hands all the time. You see how you were being guided, how you were being moved, how you were being nudged, how you were being supported. You see that there was actually never a time that the bottom was going to fall out. You see that you were supported. And all of this begins to happen in this moment as your eyes are being adjusted. You're beginning to understand your life. You're beginning to understand the purpose of your being here. And you're beginning to understand, ultimately, this consciousness of union and oneness. It's cultivated here. The other thing that begins to happen, divine insights and holy downloads begin to happen in this moment. You begin to access information that no one could have told you. You begin to access information that you didn't read in a book. You begin to access an understanding. I'm reminded, it's so interesting, I'm reminded of, and again, I look at a lot of these stories, but I'm reminded of Reverend Michael when he talks about his experience after having this profound awakening experience and realizing that love permeates everything, and he called it love beauty. He didn't have another way to describe it. But what happened for him and what happens for so many people, you have this profound sea cracking open experience, and now you have to try to understand and integrate what's going on. So that's what happened, and that's what ultimately brought him to the New Thought path. And so he goes to a New Thought center a few Sundays later, and he's hearing them speaking the truth, and he stands up, he's like, yeah, he's right. Yeah, he's right. That person is, that's what they're saying. That's the truth. because he was having this beautiful, profound experience of knowing this viscerally, and it was amazing to just go somewhere and actually hear this same truth being reflected back to him. And so again, the divine insights and the divine downloads. He hadn't read The Science of Mind yet. He hadn't studied Ernest Holmes yet, but there was a knowingness that had been developed within him, and this is what happens in this moment. Now we read in the text further, it says, last of all, he will be able to see the sun, and not mere reflections of him in the water, but he will see him in his own proper place and not in another. And he will contemplate him as he is. And again, we talked about oneness. But here what we understand, and I use these words, and the English language is so limited. Language is limited. Because when we talk about oneness, we're really talking about love. Love is union, and union is love, and oneness is love. And but what we're talking about here, eventually, you do see the sun. You see the source. You come to know the source face to face. See, okay, this idea of heaven, it's not a place that we're going to go to in the sweet by and by. But it is a consciousness that we access here and now. And so for those of you who grew up in the Christian faith and remember hearing songs like We Shall Behold Him, Then Face to Face, and it's this beautiful, folks lose their minds and fall out when this song is sung, right? Because they're just excited about this idea. One day I'm going to see God face to face and behold all the beauty and the majesty, and it's going to be wonderful. This is what Plato is talking about, but it does not take place outside of some place except in your own holy mind. And so what begins to happen, you begin to see that sun face to face. You begin to see and know that heaven is real within your own experience, within your own mind, within your own heart, which is really where your mind is. And you begin to experience this truth that heaven is here now, that bliss is here now. This is why our elder brother Jesus said it. The kingdom of heaven is here now, at hand now. It's spread out among you, but you cannot see it. If the kingdom of heaven is in the sky, then the birds precede you. That's the Gospel of Thomas. So it can't be out there.
Yes.
It's within, and it's all around us. It's in everything. And so what begins to happen at this moment, as you begin to see the sun and you begin to understand who and what you are, you will no longer believe in God, you will know God. Yes. As you see your source and come face to face with your source, you will no longer believe in God, you will understand God. You will no longer talk about love, you will know that love is all there is. Yes. You will no longer live as though you are separate from your source, but you will live knowing, as Hafiz said, two of us are housed in this body. Yes. Lord have mercy. You will not just sing the song Never Alone. I don't have to worry because I'm never alone. But you will live and embody this truth. And so when you sing, he, she, it, love walks beside me all the way, you will operate in this place at all times. And so even when the unwanted shows up in your life, because the human experience means that sometimes conditions that aren't to your liking will show up, you no longer freak out. Because you're in this consciousness of union, you're in this consciousness of love, and you're in this consciousness of service, and you're ready, willing, and able to, as a course of love says, I dedicate all thoughts to union. I dedicate all thoughts to love. I'm choosing now to be happy instead of right. In every situation. You want to change the situation, you're in a situation right now where something is unwanted or something's going on. Just say to yourself, I want to be happy. I don't want to be right. I want to be happy. See, because happiness leads to joy. The thing I love about that word happy, God is happy. God is beautiful. God is happy. And so you want to align with this transcendent truth. I want to be happy. I don't want to be... See, the ego, the mind wants to be right. Because that logical way of thinking and being, that's why it wants to be right. And so, yes, there could be a situation where you would be right in your mind according to your ego, but you will not be happy. And so when you've moved into this transcendent experience, you realize that above all else, I want to be happy. Above all else, I want to be free. Above all else, I want to be in joy. And the only reason we don't choose that is because of the familiar pain that the ego has caused us. We'd rather live in the familiar pain than the unfamiliar joy. We'd rather live in the familiar pain than the unfamiliar happiness. But start with the conditions in your life. Start with something small. Just say, I want to be happy. I don't want to be right. I've experienced what being right gives me. So I'm just about done, actually, but I talked about these unmistakable effects. And I'm reminded of one of my experiences. I've had some really profound experiences. I don't talk about them too much because there's no need to talk about it. But one experience that really forever changed me, and it came out of, it was like this, being dragged out of the cave. I was in an experience of life where life was good and things were thriving and I was creating and feeling good about life. But at the same time, there was this tension developing. And I felt week in and week out just being very pained and very frustrated. And I couldn't understand, like, where is this coming from? Why is this happening, right? I was in that mode, victim mode. I was chained, looking at the wall. Why is this happening? And so one of the things I did in that moment, just knowing that I needed to make some choices, that was actually when I was first introduced to floating and going to float tanks. You know, I love that, I do that. And so I went to try this experience and really hoping that it would help me to clear my mind and find some clarity. Now, one of the beautiful things about floating, this is not about an endorsement of floating. What it is this was a way for me to get out of my mind, right? It was a way for me to get beyond the material world. And this is why we must meditate daily. Because what happens, and I don't want to get too far because this is part of next week's message, but what happens is we need to find a way and develop a practice that keeps us tethered to this transcendent experience of being outside of the cave and seeing the sun face to face and having this profound sense of oneness, because eventually you got to go back in the cave and deal with regular folk. Air quotes when I say regular folk. And so if you're not tethered or do not maintain a consciousness of being tethered, all sorts of things will happen. Again, I don't want to get into next week. So, but again, I'm saying that in the sense that, again, this is not about endorsing floating, but this was an opportunity for me to transcend, and this was an opportunity for me to move beyond the pain and the frustration of my experience. And what happened for me, and everyone's experience is different, but after that session was for me a profound sense of oneness that has informed me from that day forward. I walked out on the street after that session. It was on 23rd in Manhattan. And I'm standing there, and it's in the evening. I think it was fall. It's like a Friday night, you know, so it's on and popping, right? People are everywhere as it's happening. And I'm standing there, and there's just this beautiful stillness within me, this silence that I can just feel within me while all the activity is happening. And then all of a sudden I remember seeing a man afar off in the corner, a homeless man, and I was him. There was literally no separation. I could see through his eyes. I was experiencing life as myself and through him at the same time. And then something said, look to your other side. And there was a couple. And they were so in love. And they were all hugged up and having a good time. But I could feel and know and sense in a visceral, as though it was happening as me, because it was. I could feel and experience that. And I felt my connection to all life and all things. There was no separation. It was pure. It was true. It was real. And all I could do was just be silent. There was nothing to talk about. And out of that experience, no one can convince me of separation. Out of that experience, I know our oneness. Out of that experience, this is what has informed so much of what we do and how we operate and how Pastor Yolanda and I operate. Because we know this beyond reading a book. We know this beyond just simply memorizing some New Thought rhetoric. We know this beyond just regurgitating philosophy. And so what I've come to understand that once you've had that experience, you automatically treat people differently.
Yes. Yes.
Automatically. Have you ever wondered why we're able to hold the highest vision of each and every one of you no matter what? Because we know who you are. Not we read about who you are. Well, we read that, I read that they're one with God, so I guess I need to see them as one with God because that's the spiritual holy thing. No, I know who you are. I don't see the mask. I don't see the facade. I don't see the worry, doubt, and fear and all the choices that were made from that's created your experience. I don't see that because that's not who you are. All of that stuff that you see is simply obscuring something that is always there. If you close your eyes right now, do you stop existing? So we're just trying to convince you to open your eyes because we see you. You're here. And so this idea then of love, union, love, and service, and it's wrapped up in this last moment from the poem. God, what love mischief can we do for the world today? So as you recognize not just your union with your brother and sister, which is true, but your union with the divine, your union with power. I was reading, I love how Maharishi Mahesh Yogi talks about enlightenment. And he says it's the difference between if you only had $5 in your pocket and you're walking around and somebody's selling roses for $1, and you didn't know that you were tied to a bank account, right? That the $5 wasn't all you had, but you actually have whatever, thousands of dollars in your bank account, and you just had that $5, you might, as he says, you might feel a pinch, like, oh, that rose is beautiful, but if I spend $1 on that rose, then all I have is $4 left. Because you have no awareness that you're actually, you have an ATM card and you can get as much money as you want out at any time. And this is how we begin to live life. The difference in this idea of union and understanding God, what love mischief can we do? When you walk out in the world, even if you have only $5 in your pocket, you recognize that you're connected to millions. You recognize that you're connected to an infinite source. So you're able to use that $5 easily and effortlessly because you know it will be replenished. You know it will be multiplied because you know it's not just you. It is you and God. It is you and the divine. It is you in power. It is you in holiness. It is you in good. It is you in love. It is you in peace. It is you in freedom. It is you in ease. You are walking through life with this thing that we call God that becomes anything that you need it to be. So in a practical sense, when you walk into that business meeting, it's not just you walking into the business meeting with your little puny human self. It's you and absolute power. It's you and the very thing that holds the planets in place, that mind, that thing. It's you and the thing that conceived of the color blue and created it. That's what you're walking around with. But you got to know that. You got to operate in that. But then the other piece, God, what love mischief can we do for the world today? So that we operate in, through, and as love. We become love millionaires. And we use that love, and we're able to serve that love, again it says, for the world today. Because you recognize that giving and receiving are one in truth. You recognize that my brother is me, my sister is me. I always remember, for me, it was one of a profound realization. I think it was when I was in seminary, looking at that really the only commandment that Jesus gives or gave, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second is like the first, to love your neighbor as yourself. And I remember when I realized, and it actually came through my study of Buddhism, love your neighbor as yourself because your neighbor is yourself. So when you have this idea of, God, what love mischief can we do for the world today? You realize that everything you do, yes, it will benefit you, but it's benefiting more than just you. Yes, it will even benefit your family, but it's benefiting more than just your family. You're benefiting the world. And this is why I love that term that Reverend Michael uses, to become a beneficial presence on the earth. What love mischief can we do for the world today? And we can then begin to get creative, to listen to the voice of love. Love, what are all the ways that we can be love? You know, in our current political climate, I was watching something yesterday, you know, this whole idea that universal health care is socialism. It's love mischief, that's what it is. How can we love the world today? How can I love my brothers and sisters, my fellow citizens, to make sure that everybody has equal and beautiful access to health care, low-cost health care, low-cost pharmaceuticals? That's love mischief for the world. It's socialism. And it's interesting, if we think about this idea of the voice of love and the voice of fear, right, the semi-logical voice of fear and the ego uses that rhetoric. And it's tried to use that rhetoric for generations to have us not listen to the voice of love. And the reason why many of us listen to that other voice is because we still believe in separation. Oh, well, why would I want to pass that? I don't want to spend my money on them. I don't want my tax dollars to go. Right? All of that separation begins to happen. But if we understand union, if we understand that there are two of us housed in this body, and the us that's in me is the us that's in you. Yeah. Right? So when I talk about two of us being housed in this body, I know that I am one with each and every one of you. And from that place, this is how we begin to serve the world, but this is how we begin to change the world. This is how we begin to create the world that works for everyone. Through union, through love and service. This, without a doubt, again, you can look at anybody's story, and there's so many. I mentioned Reverend Michael's story. I think about Byron Katie and her story, or Eckhart Tolle. You can go back to the ancients and look at their story. You can look at the Moses story. You can look at the Jesus story. You can look at David. You can look at Daniel. And if you want to read the Bible, I mean, there's so many different people and lives. You can look at Anita Moorjani. The list goes on and on, right? Ancient and modern. Union, love, and service are these unmistakable traits. Unmistakable traits. And so you can even use that as a litmus test if you're looking at, other spiritual teachers, or looking at a teaching, or watching a YouTube video. If you don't ever hear union, love, and service and what they talk about, cut that mess off. Because it's just the voice of fear. It's just the voice of the ego, and the ego is cunning in a sense that what's happened now. Pastor Yolanda and I, we talk about this all the time. It's not a real word, but we over-therapize ourselves. We got all this information now, right? And everybody, we think we can self-diagnose, and so what happens is all the information we receive and we download and we read, if we are not tapped into love's presence, the ego just begins to use that, right? And that's why we beat ourselves up. Oh, I should know this by now. I should know better, right? That's all that happens. All this truth just becomes another form of punishment. And it's because we have not allowed ourselves to be dragged out of the cave. Remembering that we're not the same person now. There's an unwanted thing that may be happening in your life or soon to happen. And I invite you to come back to that remembrance. Wait, no, I'm not that victim. I'm not that person that's just staring at the wall, locked up and locked down. I adjusted my eyes to the light of the fire. Now I get to adjust my eyes to the light of the sun. Now I get to live in transcendence. And then I get to take that light with me back into the darkness. And I become the light of the world. I invite everybody to stand. And we take a deep breath in, breathing in love. Breathing out gratitude. We breathe in gratitude, and we breathe out love. We dedicate all thoughts to union. We dedicate all thoughts to love. We dedicate all thoughts to service and to beauty. We dedicate all thoughts to this eternal and internal connection that cannot be created nor destroyed. It has existed from the beginning. This union, this love, this service is what created us. This union, this love, this service is what allows us to create. And so right here and right now, we turn our focus and attention back to that union, to that unity, for that's what you, Mother, Father, God, are, completion. That is what you, Mother, Father, God, are, wholeness. That is what you, Mother, Father, God, are, love itself. That is what you, Mother, Father, God, are, power, all the power there is to be, do, or have, anything in this time, space, reality, and beyond. That is you. We turn our focus and attention on the eternal. We turn our focus and attention on the good. And as I turn my focus and attention on who and what you are, I remember that I am one with you and one of you. I remember that I am incorporated into you. I remember that there are two of us housed in this body. And as I remember that, I speak these words, God in me, what love mischief can we do for the world today? And I realize it doesn't take long to hear the answer. I turn on the television and I see the need for love mischief in our world today. I recognize that there's a need for love mischief in this country, and there's a need for love mischief in our families, and there's a need for love mischief in our loving relationships, and there's a need for love mischief in our friend relationships, and there's a need for love mischief in the way we operate in our businesses, and there's a need for love mischief in the ways that we operate with our co-workers and our employers and our employees. There's a need for love mischief. There's a call for this to be served to the world today, and we say, here am I, here am I, here am I, here am I. I say yes to the call of love. I say yes to the call of peace. I say yes to the call of freedom. I say yes to the call of good. I say yes to the call of joy. I say yes to the call of good. I say yes to the call of good. I say yes. I say yes. I say yes. Choosing to serve the world today because I understand who and what I am. And I remain tethered. I remain tethered to this transcendent experience. I remain tethered to the consciousness that brought me through the illness and healed me. I remain tethered to this consciousness that took me from no funds to abundant funds. I remain tethered to this consciousness that took me out of the bad breakup and divorce to the love of my life. I stay tethered. I stay tethered. I stay tethered. I stay tethered to this consciousness that took me through and showed me exactly who I am. And I am grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for the experience. I will not use the body's eyes, but I recognize that God's eyes are the eyes that I see through. The light of God is the light from which I see. And I allow only God and God light to illuminate my experience. For this truth, I am so very grateful. And it is with gratitude and thanksgiving that I release this prayer, knowing that it will be met, it is heard, and it is manifested right here and right now. So with joy and thanksgiving, we lift up our voices and we say amen. Amen. Ashe. And so it is. So it is. Thank you, God.
Have a seat, everybody. That message will have you running. What love mischief can I get into today? What playfulness? How can I show up as the light? How can I show up in my relationships? I don't have to go out there into the world yet if my home life ain't stable. Right? I get to be playful. I get to allow this unfolding to show me the truth. I get to be happy in my learning. I get to be playful in my expression. I get to tease and allow it to be teased out of me what needs to happen. I get to just relax in the joy of this knowing that whatever is to be done is already done, so I allow it now.
Yes.
I get grateful in this playfulness, in this love expression. I allow all of life to be all of me. And I get to let go of my desire to be right And you see what being right means? It means that I'm right in how limited I am. It means I'm right in how broke I am. It means I'm right in how unworthy I am. It means I'm right in how uncreative I am. It means I'm right that I'll never find love. Would you rather be that right, or would you rather be happy? Would you be happy in the knowingness that God is and that all is yours to have? That's how you look at the right versus the happy. You can be a right all day. You can be right in your limitedness all day long, every day. And guess what life will reflect to you? Your rightness. Am I the only one?
No.
So today we get to be free. We get to be enjoyed. We get to be playful. We get to be mischievous. Thank you, Pastor Grant.
In this moment, it is time to prepare for giving. And so if there's anyone, if you need an envelope or a pen, please raise your hand. Our ushers are happy to serve you. For those that are streaming online, you should see the link for giving. You can go to our website, celebrationsc.org. Scroll down to the giving section. If you'd like to text to give, the number is 347-744-9500. We appreciate all of you and supporting us in saving trees. So I just want to offer something that's just a practical idea, and if you're not practicing this, it's something very simple to do. When we think about giving, we have to prepare to give, and I don't mean just prepare in the sense of thinking about the consciousness of, oh, giving and receiving or one in truth or those spiritual ideas, but you can set yourself up to be able to give easily and effortlessly without much worry or distress by creating 3 buckets: a give bucket, a save bucket, and a spend bucket. Right? And of course, the spend bucket would be for your immediate needs, the things that you need to do to take care of your bills, your mortgage, your rent, whatever those things are. Right? And then save. Now, your saving bucket, don't save for a rainy day. Right? Save for a purpose, right? Maybe there is a business that you want to create, or maybe there's a trip that you want to go on, or maybe you're saving for a down payment on your home, whatever it may be. Have a purpose for the savings, right? Very important. And then give. Because we recognize, you understand the principle, right? That as you give, you receive. And so you want to stay open. And what begins to happen as you stay open and you're living in this space of giving and are intentionally giving, whatever that amount is, if you just put $1 in each bucket every day, you are making a deliberate choice. You're making a deliberate choice around your funds and how you're going to use those funds. And so then easily and effortlessly, you know you have this gift jar, you just go into it and you give easily and effortlessly. You've already taken care of your spend, you've taken care of your save. And now you can give and operate in this beautiful flow of planting and harvesting. And so when we operate in this flow, we can give with ease and joy, and we can affirm all the money that I use, returns to me multiplied, in a never-ending cycle of increase and enjoyment. And to that, let us take a very joyous offering. I call our ushers forward.
Back to me, I give my love, more love comes rushing back
extend our hands, and through our hands, that every life beat the life force, the mind that is you, Mother, Father, God. We are so grateful today that we can extend our hands, that our bodies are operating in such a way that we allow the energy of life to flow through us. We are grateful today for the givers and for the gifts, for we know that as it goes out, it has to come back. We are open and available to this more life, this more joy, this more peace, this more ease. From this place of awareness, I release these words back into the mind that knows all is perfect, whole, and complete. And we say, amen. Amen. Ashe. So it is.
Let's sing this together. I give my love.
Rushing back to me. Thank you.
I give my time. More time available
to me.
I give my shoulders. Doors are opening. As I give, I receive. Yes, it's all. Right back to me. Hey, back to me. Right on back to me. Just as easy as we breathe. Right back to me. Oh, right back. Right back. Oh, right back. Coming right back. Yeah.
Opportunities available for Summer 11, because that's coming, and I'm excited.
Yes.
So, we are out of the cave, y'all. What y'all gonna do now, child?
Love mischief.
Love mischief, yes. But if something's come up for you, some reason why you got your heel back there in the cave, write it down. Write down the fear, the doubt, the worry. Leave it on the altar. And when we let go of it all, when we allow ourselves to be lovingly pulled towards the light, what do we say here at CSC?
All things are possible.
Now, all things, they are possible. Yes, every little thing, it's so possible. 'Cause I know who I am. And I know whose I am.
We love you.